Hello and welcome to this Astranti video. Today we'll be asking the question, what makes good data? Business decisions are being driven more and more by data, so it's essential that you can tell what makes data good and useful for businesses. This is a topic you'll encounter in BA1, but you'll also need to have an understanding of data for E1 and E3. This is an extract from our video on Chapter 19 of BA1. If you want to see the full video, this can be found for free on the Astranti website. But for now, let's jump straight in and consider what makes good data.
There are a few characteristics of good data, and of course good data allows us to make good information, which allows us to make insightful recommendations. So good data needs to be reliable, it needs to be relevant, it needs to be clear, accurate, given to the right person at the right time, and cost efficient. So what do these mean? Let's look at them a bit more closely. So for data to be reliable, it needs to be things such as facts and figures. Facts and figures don't lie. Of course they can be manipulated, but they do not lie. And it needs to come from a trusted source, such as perhaps having a computer system that directly processes the exact figures that come in from the bank and provides an outcome, rather than just relying on someone that said, I think we got about £500 last year. Such as from a reputable organisation as well, perhaps from doing your accounting with a reputable accounting organisation rather than relying on the internet to do it for you from something you've never heard of. It's always important to get information from a reliable source. If you go to a doctor and a doctor tells you that you need to have this treatment for this illness, you trust that. If you Google it and just some person from some part of the world posts a blog post or a comment saying, you need to do this, don't trust the doctor, who are you going to believe? That's the point of data. It needs to be reliable if you're going to make relevant decisions from it. And on the subject of relevant, it needs to be related to the business or industry that you are operating in. So, for example, our pie shop, we need to know about the eating habits of people in order to get good information. We don't need to know their shoe size, though. That's not going to be relevant to our company. That's going to be relevant to our industry. It needs to be comprehensive as well. By that is that we can't just have a bit of an insight. As in, people sometimes like pies. Well, that's not comprehensive. We need to know more about what pies they like, how often they purchase pies, and so on. But not excessive, because otherwise that will lead to data overload, where of course we just have so much information we can't possibly process it. And that actually is where big data comes in later. Now on to clear. So the information needs to be presented well, so that we don't just want to get a huge mass of information, we want it to be presented well, such as in a chart or a graph. So we've got one here that's got money and months, shows us how much money we're making in each month. That is clear and understandable. That's not a huge spreadsheet where the months and the figures are all mixed up and we have to drag it apart and pick it apart ourselves. As in looking at a huge bit of information like that, it's not zoomed in enough for you to see the specific figures, but you get the idea. It's where you just have a mass of information. You want the graph, you don't want the table of information. And the audience itself needs to be taken into account. Who's going to be looking at this information? If you're presenting it to the board of directors, they don't want to have to do all the work themselves. They want you to provide them with a nice clear graph that they can just make a decision based on that. They don't want to have to go trawling through all the data themselves. Needs to be accurate, so similar to reliable as well, but this being more to do with the numbers themselves rather than the source. So for example, you want the numbers to be accurate. You don't want the invoices to miss bits out. You want the actual figure to be accurate. If you've got a thing saying you made £100,000 profit last year, you want to be sure that you did make £100,000 profit last year, not around about £100,000. We can't estimate it, or we can't guess it exactly, so it was around £100,000, so let's just round it up or down to £100,000. The methods in which we calculate our data can be important here, such as if you think of a supermarket. Now a supermarket has a stock reader, has a barcode. Now this barcode, whenever it scans through the till, it does several things. A, it stores exactly how much money was earned from selling that product, or the actual revenue generated from selling that product. It also tells all the people in the stockroom, all the people in the head office, that this particular unit has been sold, deducts that unit from the total number of units that are currently in stock of that unit, and thus gives you an idea of when you need to reorder. The right person at the right time. So, for example, if we were falling in demand, we need to perhaps stop buying so much of a particular product. For example, say our pies, we're not selling that many pork pies. So we need to stop bringing in so much pork into the business because we are not shipping out the pork pies quickly enough. And of course, pork is an item that could go off. It could expire. And so if we keep buying pork at the same rate, a lot of it is going to be wasted because we're not going to sell it in time. But of course, if when we realize that demand has fallen, we just make a note of it, we don't tell the person who makes that decision, we don't tell the person who is in charge of ordering the pork, then it's not going to allow us to make an effective outcome. It's not going to allow us to do something that benefits the business, that stops us from our costs from going down, because we haven't told the person who is responsible. If we're just telling people on the shop floor or the cleaner or someone like that, they're going to know, but they're not going to be able to action anything. They're not going to make any decisions based on it. So it has to go to the right person. Also needs to be cost efficient. So as in, what is learnt from the cost of information. So going back to the example of the survey, if we at our pie shop went out and conducted a survey where we spoke to a lot of different people, that could cost a lot of money. If we don't get any good information from that, it's not worth doing because we've wasted money. And also the amount of money we spend on information. If we need to pay a particular company hundreds of thousands of pounds to get all this data that they've collected from secondary research, then if we're not going to get enough insights to make more than £100,000 worth of changes, then it's not going to be worth doing. And a simple way of looking at this could be to have your information, the change that you want to bring, and the value of that information. If you wanted to make this change that you think is going to make more money for your business, how much money would you be willing to spend on that information to let you know whether it was worth doing or not? And if the amount that you would have to spend is more than you'd be willing to spend, then it's not cost efficient.
So we've come to the end of this video, and you should now have a better understanding of what makes good data. If you want to consider this subject in more depth, you can find the full video on our website, where you can also find other CIMA Certificate resources, which you can access for free. If you've enjoyed this video, why not subscribe to one of our social media accounts? We can be found on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and of course here on YouTube, where you can find many more videos on a wide range of topics. Thanks for watching.